Welcome to the CEO Project podcast, where Jim Schleckser, author of the best-selling book, Great CEOs Are Lazy, and the founder of the CEO Project, provides ideas and tools to help CEOs of mid to large-sized companies grow and optimize their businesses. Now, let's get started with the show. Welcome, everybody, to the CEO Project podcast. My name is Jim Schleckser. I'm your host and the founder of the CEO Project. Hey, I said it right. That's twice in a row, so I think I deserve something for that. Today, we've got one of our members that we're going to talk to who is a CEO of quite a sizable company. And, it's an opportunity to really get inside the brain of a CEO and hear how they think about their business and their job and their position and so forth. So we have Brent Yeagy. He's an industrial manufacturing leader with more than 25 years of experience in automotive and commercial transportation. Since 2018, he's been responsible for the strategic direction and operations of Wabash in his role as president and CEO. He's run through all the seats you can imagine, from line positions to staff positions. So he's really got a diverse background before he got into this position. He is a veteran. We got Veterans Day coming up. So he served in the Navy, in the nuclear Navy program. Brent and I were talking before the podcast that a large proportion of CEOs went through that program. They pick some good people, I think. He is also on the board of the National Association of Manufacturers and the Transportation and Supply Chain Institute at the University of Denver. So Brent, welcome.
Thanks, Jim. Look forward to talking today.
No, thanks for coming. So maybe you could, for those that don't know, maybe you could just explain to us what Wabash does.
Sure. So Wabash is a publicly traded company. We were founded in 1985, and we service the logistics, transportation, and distribution industries. We provide primarily physical assets to help move freight, such as dry vans, tankers, platform trailers, and truck bodies, as well as a host of services, a series of digital solutions that assist carriers and logistics companies, as well as aftermarket parts and physical services to repair equipment.
Got it. And how many locations do you guys operate out of?
So we have 15 manufacturing locations, 12 service locations, and 5 distribution locations for aftermarket parts.
Got it. And just for scale, I mean, you're publicly traded, so some north of $2 billion in revenue.
Correct. I would say nominally we're about a $2.5 billion company.
Yeah, just a little off in the last 12 months is the only reason why I set it underneath a little bit.
Yeah.
So, let's just start with the question, like, how do you, that is an industry that's been around for a long time, of moving stuff with trucks and of all flavors. How do you differentiate yourself against some of the other competitors that are out there, Freightliner and, some of the others that are out there?
Sure. Well, it's difficult. Just doing it on product alone isn't going to suffice. There's just not enough, we'll call it envelope for differentiation in just the product. Now, we pride ourselves on leading from an innovation perspective in the risk we take and how we think about the product. But our differentiation really is much more in how do we think about a premium service? How do we serve customers and listen very specifically to their needs, and then customize not just our physical products, but in the way that we provide those to them, and really try to understand what problem they're really trying to solve. Typically, it goes beyond just the asset they're looking for.
Okay, so give me an example of that. I love that direction of being customer intimate to a level. Let me solve the problem you're really trying to solve, not just giving you a truck.
Yeah.
Give us some insight to how you think about that.
Yeah. So we have a large scale LTL customer right now who is investigating.
So for those who don't know, that's less than truckload.
Less than truckload. So that would be, for example, your Old Dominion, Saia, parts of JB Hunt, parts of Schneider, R&L Logistics. So companies that really move small parcels regionally to serve, quick turn distribution needs. So when this specific customer was looking at how do they grow their business, targeting a non-traditional set of routes, I got to be careful what I say. So right? But the point was, they're also looking to grow their business through deploying capital, terminals, assets, so on. And they're in a quandary because to grow in this segment, they needed assets, but they were assets that would not be as utilized as they would in their traditional operations. So when we talked to them about it, yes, we could provide them the equipment, but what they really need was more agile capacity. So we have a product called trailers trailers as a service, which is a subscription-based product that allows them to consume that capacity without actually owning the equipment. They can subscribe to available capacity. That allowed them to get access to the assets in the way they wanted to consume it to meet their needs in a capital efficient way.
Nice. I mean, this is like every business case from 5 years ago, which is the Uberization of trailers, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly across the board. We call it the Uberization of freight.
Yeah.
And it really is a growing trend slash force within logistics.
Now, the downside is capital requirements on your side,
Yeah.
but you probably lock the customer in nicely. Why isn't everybody doing this? It seems like a better idea.
Well, I mean, the traditional, there's a couple things. One, just being able to put a digital product out there and say that you can aggregate, need, and provide a subscribed service doesn't mean that you have access to the actual asset itself, whether it be manufacturing capacity, so on and so forth. You also have to think about how do you arrange insurance, how do you arrange maintenance, all those various things. And those are assets we already have.
Right.
We do this every day. So for us, it was just as simple as adding a digital platform to manage the process. Every other physical asset was in place.
Got it. And how does that compare to like the load boards? I mean, there's been a way to sort of flex capacity for a non-asset based carrier. And they just get on a load board and put the load up and then find a quality carrier to take it.
Well, from a basic brokerage load board standpoint, that's matching a shipper to a destination to a carrier.
Yep.
This is much more of, we're not playing in the load board space. What we're doing is we're facilitating that transaction. Logistics has become so inefficient based off of reverse logistics, delivery to the home, just friction within the system itself. Post-COVID changed supply chain routes. So one of the ways that you tackle the inefficiency is increase what we call drop and hook operations. So that allows us to drop a trailer, move the tractor, keep the tractor rolling while freight's unloaded. That requires more trailers than it does tractors. Not everyone can afford that, especially small and medium-sized carriers.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So we provide that ability for a broker who may be running power only. So an owner operator who just brings power to the table, access to a 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 5-to-1 trailer to tractor ratio, so that load board can create the match most optimally.
Got it. And he can drop and go pick up another load and keep his engine working, basically, which is how he makes money.
Exactly. Right.
Got it. Okay.
So it's another version of a trailer pool. You have traditional leasing, you have traditional rental. This is a different, more agile and more configurable way of doing it.
Got it. Interesting. Okay, so what other, I mean, I'm thinking back to GE and Jack Welch and wrapping services around a product, right? And it feels like you've got, and this is certainly one service that you've wrapped around the product is the way to make it stickier and higher margin. Are there other products, other things, services, offerings around the product itself that you to try to augment?
Yeah, so we were in an active joint venture with a company called Fernway to develop the Wabash ecosystem or Wabash platform. Think of it as a digital hub that allows us not only to manage our trailers as a service offering, but at the same time, those owner operators who may need, or that brokerage company that may need, we'll call it 100 points of capacity for a given lane. At that same time, they can consume the insurance that it takes to put that trailer on the road. They can plug in and also arrange the parking for that trailer through partnerships through the ecosystem that they run through the platform. That we have the ability of doing aggregated toll management so that those invoices can be managed. Because again, you're bringing these things to the table, but then there's this whole set of enablers that go with it that
Yeah.
actually allow it to scale. We bring those as well.
Got it. So I can go, it's a go to one place, get everything I need to actually roll that truck and make it and bill somebody and do it intelligently.
Exactly. So we remove barriers to small, medium size, and in some cases, larger companies to get that asset on the road faster. Where leasing and rental companies, I just get the asset.
Yeah. Got it.
We give you capacity.
There's a concept here that they have in the healthcare industry of, revenue cycle management.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really looking for, revenue leakage in the medical process. It's interesting. I think this is kind of where you're tagging in, right? Because I know that we've dealt with companies in the past that have sort of the dispute management process post ship. Right. Well, I forgot the tolls, or I forgot the fuel premium, or I forgot and now we got to go find a way to collect $150 from somebody. And like, what a pain in the butt, right?
Right. And so the digitalization of logistics, especially in the movement of freight, has kind of moved into this world where dynamic allocation of resources, dynamic pricing, taking advantage of regional differences in supply and demand requires agility, much more agility than it used to.
Yeah.
And to fulfill that promise, just because you can put the digital tech in to find those locations to create that value from a movement standpoint, doesn't mean you can bring the assets to bear. Right. That's the problem we're solving.
Yeah, interesting. There's actually some Nobel Prize work on that topic related to people trying to find jobs. And you go, how come people can't find a job when there are lots of jobs available and it's a location problem? Yeah. Exactly to your point.
Absolutely.
So yeah. Just tagging into the agility thing. I know you organizationally are pretty committed to agile, lean operations. That's sort of one of your specialties. So talk to us about how you've deployed that in your organization and what has the impact been of becoming lean, becoming agile in that way?
Yeah. So Wabash has been, I would say, a lean practitioner, primarily on the operations front, really since the 2003-4 timeframe. Wow. And with substantial implementation there, who really moved to a mixed model flow operational environment, right? All the way up through into the supply chain. But the difference today, especially when I became CEO, is that we moved it into the strategy deployment part of the business and how we think about bringing innovation quickly to market. So bringing in the concept of minimal viable product and lean startup, all of those concepts are weaved into what we call the Wabash management system, which is really a top-sided version or a complementary piece to what we do with lean on the operational front.
Got it.
And that was a missing piece for Wabash. We were very operation-centric in the way we thought. We need to be more business-centric in the way we deploy.
Got it. I love the idea of bringing lean thinking to business processes as well, because that was always the unchallenged frontier, and it needed it badly. So that's great.
Yeah.
How does that help you? I mean, this is a cyclical industry, and in the last few years, it's been like a roller coaster ride of can't find drivers, too many drivers, can't find trucks, too many trucks, and that's just along a continuum of that kind of cycle. How do you think about cyclicality? How do you manage to a cyclical industry? I think some of this agility is part of it, but what else do you do when you think about how do we deal in that kind of environment?
Yeah, two parts. One, right? How do you move your way out more and more of that cyclical environment?
I mean, finding another industry that's less cyclical.
Right. Okay. That's a separate, I'll consider that a separate question, but it's sort of dealing with cyclicality itself. I think there's so many different ways to think about that. Agile consumption of resources.
Sure.
Dynamic reallocation of resources as needed. For us, it really was when I became CEO, and I've been at Wabash for 22 years, so I got to see multiple rounds of this.
Yep.
You have to restructure the balance sheet to make sure that you're in a great place. Wabash historically had put itself in a position to have to hunker down, to cease the deployment of capital, to cease the process of growth, to reallocate to the level of stopping what would actually get them out of the pickle that they're in. We're in the longest freight recession we've ever seen right now. Not necessarily the deepest, but the longest. And we're solidly profitable, even with a 30+% reduction in revenue due to cyclicality.
Yep.
We're able to deploy capital exactly the pace that we thought. We're able to return capital to shareholders. We're able to purchase our stock while it's depressed. All the things that we need to do to manage the business, we've been able to do by how we manage the balance sheet, how we have restructured our customer portfolio to be more resilient, how we've improved the overall profitability of the business to be more resilient. Yep. Resiliency is what you have to put in place when you're a cyclical, so that you can maintain an offensive posture even when you're at the bottom of the cycle.
Got it. Interesting. Now, so that has implications, for example, debt load that you're willing to take on.
Absolutely. So we sit here today, and you know, at the bottom of the cycle, we have effectively an untapped revolver. We still have patient debt, and we're able to through just cash flow do everything that we need to do to meet the intent of our strategic plan. Preserving that debt, all those different debt facilities are available now and into the future, all for offensive activities, not to keep the place afloat.
Yeah, keep the lights open. I had this experience in telecommunication, which has some cyclicality. And the business I was at, we loaded a bunch of debt, unfortunately, in acquisitions. We did it with debt, not equity. Yeah. Chihuahua, it is a horrible place to be, man.
Well, and that's been a challenge, right? Because, you know, for a board or we'll call it external forces, you know, you've got some don't touch your debt. You have others that say use it to the nth degree to move you out of this place.
Yeah.
The odds when you're this cyclical I don't think balance being that aggressive. And we've seen what it's done to us and others in the past. So we had to position Wabash to take on that increased debt load when the time is right, which is what we've done. And then we have to be more programmatic in the way we deploy it. And we've got to get the return, and we've got to cover the increased or the coverage of that debt as we go. We hope is not a strategy.
Yeah, no. Yep. I always loved economic value add as a model here when I'm thinking about adding debt or adding, you know, capital in the business, that if it doesn't far exceed the cost of my capital, it's wealth destroying, and I shouldn't be doing it. Right. And I think a lot of people make that mistake. They don't even think about it like that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's absolutely right.
Yeah. Interesting. So culture, you know, you've got multiple 15 manufacturing operations plus a distributed force. How do you maintain the Wabash culture across that platform? What kind of tools, techniques, methodologies do you use?
Well, we have a Wabash Management System office, and that's new for Wabash in the last 5 years, and that's dedicated resources. And their mission is to do the work to put the basic, copied off the Danaher business system.
Yep.
This is how we think. This is our problem-solving methodology. Here's our principles, and we drill and train on that new people and retraining, and we teach. Teaching is critical. Coaching is critical.
Yep.
And then the engagement process is not a luxury. It's a requirement. And when the world says you need to maybe shift, that's actually when you've got to double down on your engagement. So we practice that. And then having that basic lean operating cascading information system that allows us to talk to our people routinely, quickly, and in a flow manner is critical to be able to do it as well. But to say that it is easy would be a misstatement. It's incredibly hard. And you know, am I happy on most days? No, I am disappointed on most days, which I think is okay, because it's about the level of excellence we're shooting for is high.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a great book called Pleased But Not Satisfied.
Yeah.
Right.
I think, yeah.
I'll never be satisfied, but I could be pleased on some days.
That's right. For a moment, I go, that's not too bad.
Yeah. Right. So let's move over to the board. So you have a publicly traded company. So you got a formal board, you got formal processes. How do you manage your engagement with the board? I know you work with your chairman or chairperson.
Yeah.
But talk to us about how you work with your board. How do you get the most out of your board of directors?
Yeah. I mean, that's been a very big learning process, being a first-time CEO.
Yep.
I would say the biggest thing for me is that I now know that I have to dedicate personal time to think about how I want to engage the board. Right? It's not a calendar-based process. It's not a it's not a perfunctory checklist. It's you have to actually think about the messaging over multiple periods of time, and what's my 9-month storyboard on how I unpack where we're going so that they can consume it, that they can retain it, that they're not tricked into being risk averse by the nature at which I provide the information. I think has been critical. And then knowing when and how, which is still an area that I have to improve upon, is when to call certain board members at certain times, because they're going to be a large force in the full board looking to them to maybe give insight relative to their area of expertise. So we engage the whole team now in who this is your board member, right? This, head of operations, this is your board member. You own 80% of the communication to them off meeting. I've got the other 20. Head of audit committee, CFO, he's yours, right? I got the other 20. And so we look at it that way.
Okay, that's fabulous. And I love the idea of getting them on sides before the meeting. I spent a lot of time in nonprofits, JCs, service organizations, and the line was, you never go into a meeting unless you already know the vote count.
Yeah, absolutely.
So and I love the idea of, do you literally storyboard, or do you sort of conceptually do that in your head?
Because I actually have a form that I made that is a storyboard form, right? So I have standard work on, this is what we do.
Okay, nice. I used to say, the problem is it's easy for a CEO to outthink an organization or a board, frankly, because you spend full time thinking about it and you're smart. And I used to say, okay, make the list of 10 things you want to do in time and how they're going to be connected, and show them the first 3. After you've done one, show them the 4th one.
Exactly.
And show them all 10 or their heads will explode, right?
Well, it's not just that the CEO maybe has thought about this a year ahead of when he's launching it.
Right.
But your people, like literally your staff, is in a similar boat, where the board might be a year behind. The staff might be 4 months behind, yet they're going to help convey in that board meeting that vision and substantiate it. So the storyboard process, I found, is an alignment tool for them as well, because they have to participate in the story creation.
Yep. Got it. Well, particularly if they're going to manage a board member, they have to own the story.
Right? Exactly.
Yep. So, maybe on a little bit of a darker note, you guys had a lawsuit that unfortunately went the wrong way with regard to an accident.
Sure.
Some people lost their lives in an accident with one of your 20-year-old trucks, and people came after you that it didn't have modern safety standards, and which would have prevented these problems, which is a little crazy for me to even think about. But it feels like that sets a precedent for almost unlimited liability in the logistics and transportation industry. How do you think about, how do we manage that? And what do you think the implications are to the industry? Because it feels profound to me.
Profound would be a good way of describing it.
Maybe not big enough. I mean, what's bigger than profound?
Existential.
There you go.
So let me start with this. We had a loss of life. We had two individuals that crashed into the back of a trailer that was at a stoplight, basically stopped on the road. That was perfectly legal where it was supposed to be. The 2 individuals didn't have their seatbelts on, were intoxicated, no skid marks, at or above the speed limit. And it's a tragedy, right? 2 lives are gone. To your point, it was a 20-year-old trailer, met the US DOT standards at the time. And the basically what the court said was, or that the jury said, based off of the plaintiff's argument, was that Wabash should have known to put a more robust rear impact guard on that trailer all the way back in 2004, to have them survive with no seatbelts, no stop, no brake, over the speed limit, and running at a speed that today there's still no technology to actually be able to do that, and for something that completely complied with the law.
So, which scares the heck out of us as business owners.
Sure. So now you're sitting here and you're asking yourself, what is the implied residual liability and risk that every single trailer, and this just, it goes beyond just trailers, right? It's anybody who puts a product. It could be this has far-reaching product liability issues, and it comes down to that it has very little to do with the substance of the product or the safety. It's much more about the laws and the ability from a tort standpoint for plaintiffs' attorneys to take advantage of a lack of institutional trust that exists across the country and that is growing.
Yep.
And a lack of federal, state statutes that limit the egregiousness of what can happen. And this case happened to be in Missouri, and that's why something like this can happen, because they don't have limitations around that. Some states do. If you're in compliance with existing regulations, then you have a limitation of liability because you did what the government told you to do.
Sure.
So we're sitting here today. Everything that we do is still 100% compliant. We meet or exceed all the standards, and everything that we do, we always have.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
Yeah. So we're left here going, not only do we have to fight a nuclear judgment, we have to think about how do you protect yourself, and what does that look like into the future while dealing with the appeal process, and which we'll do through due process. And we'll defend and fight vigorously on that front. We don't know where it goes right now. We don't know what coalitions need to come together. We don't know the exact path. It's bigger than Wabash. And so we need to find out what's the right coalition to go after it.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like every trailer manufacturer out there, every guardrail manufacturer, would want to be involved in making sure this didn't go down the way it did. So
no, and you're right, because now everybody's got this question of, well, do I have to retrofit my trailer? So what? There's nothing that can do it.
Yeah, right. Now what? Airbags on the back of the trailer? I don't know.
So we think in the end this becomes an interstate commerce issue.
Yeah.
Because people will have to. I mean, literally, you want a carrier would have to dodge states.
Yeah.
To stay out of undue risk. And that creates a problem.
Oof. Well, unbelievable. Well, good luck. I just these things happen, and I've always been said you never want to go to court, you never want to go to a jury, and this is like the case for that, So
yeah.
So sorry,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Complexity does not describe the nuances of this situation.
No, and I always wonder, if it's complex for somebody like you or the business or a safety expert that does this full time, how the heck is a jury of normal human beings ever going to understand it? They can't possibly understand it.
No. We need the federal government to step in and bring sanity to this situation.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that. I wish I could help you. I had a friend, he's unfortunately passed away. He was general counsel for Department of Transportation. What it made me helpful. Well, he's unfortunately in heaven now, so I can't make the introduction. So what's next for Wabash? Where are you bringing this business? What's it look like in 3-5 years?
Yeah. So it goes somewhat to where we were going earlier, which is Wabash has to move and dampen the cyclicality that it finds itself in. That's how we bring value to our shareholders. That's how we unlock the value and drive forward momentum for the stock and ultimately grow the company. We've reached a point where stability has been maintained. We're proving that through the cycle that we're in right now. And so it is finding that next gear of growth, of merging digital and physical together, and how we move that to our customers. And then I would say supersizing those capabilities with our balance sheet, through some targeted growth actions that allow that to magnify. So that's the simple version. I would way I describe it. Incredibly complex under the water there. So that's where we're focused, and we want to be able to think about what it looks like to have 25% of our revenue fall into a more recurrent model,
There you go.
And
You
not
know how we
necessarily.
love recurring revenue at the CEO project. So yeah,
Yeah, and we need it to be there, and it doesn't have to be. People will say, "Well, are you ever going to remove your cyclicality?" Well, no,
right.
no business ever actually removes their cyclicality. They shift it, they offset it, they mute it, they mitigate it. That's the mission we're on right now.
Got it. Is there any obvious counter-cyclical industry?
Counter, no.
Okay, so we can't do pool supplies and skiing equipment. We don't
No,
have one of those.
not for the capabilities that we have. I
Yeah.
think it's much more of we can create and get into more stable revenue.
Yeah, there you
And
go.
for us, we're seeing it right now. So 5 years ago, we had less than we were single digit percentages of recurrent revenue within the business. So we're up 200 million plus, and it's 200 million of revenue that's coming from recurrent on 2.5, and it's double, arguably 2.5 times the EBITDA margin of our existing business. So you think about it, that 200 million is not on a weighted basis. That's like 400 million.
No, it punches above its weight because it's dynamic
Absolutely.
margin. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. I always loved those incremental dollars. They were the best dollars.
Yeah. And you're seeing other parts of our business like truck bodies, which was an 2017 acquisition. Once we stabilized it, they are not acyclical, but they are on a different economic cycle.
Okay.
And they're very strong. So they're providing, tailwinds to our overall profitability. That's what we got to do more of.
Got it. Interesting. Well, Brent, this was fantastic. I mean, just across the whole business, and your mastery of it is truly impressive. And I think everybody learned something about, I meant to ask one last question. Public versus private. You operate in the public environment, which I've done both, and I have a view on which one I prefer. Any view on being public or potential, or not that you're going to take it private, but the sort of issues around being public and being a public company CEO?
First two companies I worked for, Rexnord Corporation and Delco Remy, spun off from General Motors. It was private, went public, went private. So I've had both.
There you go. So you can compare.
Yeah. And there's two versions. Like, what do I think about that as a CEO? And what do I think about that as a company? What I would say is that it is difficult for a small cap that has no equivalent peers to share its message and to adequately communicate how it should grow and what it's compared to as a public company. That is a challenge. We have to change our zip code through scale to really play well in the public markets. We're in a way we're like a private company structure inside of a public company world. We need to move in if we're going to stay public, which is where we're at today, and that's the mode that we're in. Then we've got to fix that. The strategy would be different if we were private, absolutely. Which would have different challenges, but much more under our control to do.
Yeah, we always struggle to develop buy-side interest in our stock. As a relatively smaller cap, couple of billion.
Right.
It's just hard as heck, man.
Well,
I can't imagine these guys that are $100 million in public. I mean, it just must be a nightmare.
Terrible. And we can't get analyst coverage like we would like, because again, we don't even have peers to aggregate the analyst work.
Yep. That is the problem. I'll tell you, the thing that changed it for us is we got into an index. It was on the London. So we got into the very bottom of the FTSE. The minute you get in any index, automatic buy for multiple funds, because that's their
yeah. And we've been able to move into some better, call it, indexes over the last 10 years. But we've got to improve our trade volume. We got to improve our float. We've got to improve our trading volume in general. All those things are such a requirement for being publicly traded, but have nothing to do with actually operating the business.
There's the problem, right? Takes a lot of calories and doesn't change the performance of the business one nickel. It's nuts. So awesome. Well, hey, Brent, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate you giving it and sharing so transparently about your business. So thank you, and I wish you good luck.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
My friend. Thank you. We'll see you next time on the CEO Project Podcast. Thanks for joining us. At the CEO Project, we work with CEOs to help them grow their business. And our members represent billions of dollars of revenue and profit. And frankly, amongst all of us, we've probably made every mistake in the book, including some you haven't made yet. So if you want to learn from the experience of a bunch of really seasoned CEOs, we're a great place to hang out. In this podcast, what you're going to hear are some of those ideas, concepts, and things that are just going to help you on your journey. If you want to find out more, reach out to us at theceoproject.com, or you can contact me personally at jim@theceoproject.com. Thanks for listening to the CEO Project Podcast. We'll see you next time. Be sure to subscribe to get all the future episodes and check out our website, www.theceoproject.com.